So tell me about the first deal. What was your first deal that you closed?
It was an $11 million deal out in California. So
I love how you said all nonchalant. It's like, well, it was this $11 million deal in California. Like, so what'd you make on $11 million deal?
It was good. It was a 67,000, and we had to back down on our points.
Hold on a second. You see that again, Joe? First deal, she made 67,000, and she's just like it's no big deal. There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. You know, people always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs in Finance. I'm Kris Roglieri, Commercial Capital Training Group, and we have a very exciting episode this time where we get to explore the lives of graduates, but this is a very special graduate, one that it really defines what I call a real go-getter, has not been in the business a long time, but has been really, really successful. And so let me introduce Kimmy Humphrey of Capital Atlantic Solutions. Hey, Kimmy.
Hey, how are you, Kris?
I'm good. How are you? Long time no see.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I could remember it was like yesterday when we were literally at Jack's celebrating at the end of class, right? Seems like so long ago with all this COVID crap going on.
Yeah, it really does. As long as that seems ago, it at the same time feels like it was just yesterday.
It does. And so where are you from, Kimmy?
Virginia Beach, born and raised, and I'm still here. I have never left. I don't know any different.
You've never left?
No.
Okay.
I went to college in Norfolk at ODU, so right next door to us. So I really have never left.
All right. Well, that's okay. So, you know, I listen, I appreciate you coming on here and willing to be interrogated.
Yes.
It's always fun. You know, we chose you to be on this podcast because your journey is pretty interesting, and I don't really know too much about prior to you coming here, which that's what I want to explore a little bit. But while you were here, one thing that really stuck out with me, and I see people every month that come through here, is that I could already tell you were a real go-getter. I mean, you were a real go-getter to the point where, you know, and sometimes like you're a little bit of a pain in the ass in a good way. Does that make sense? Like you were asking questions and I'm like, relax, Kimmy. It's good. You know, we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that. You were just like frantically like writing notes, and which is a good thing. So I don't mean that to insult you. That's a good thing.
I recorded the whole thing too.
You recorded the whole thing.
You were talking too fast. I'm like, stop, I can't get all this. I'm just going to record them.
Yeah, I know. We talk fast up here in the Northeast. You know,
It's great.
We're not laid back like down south.
I know. I had to get used to it. I had to pivot real quick.
You had to pivot real quick, and you did, and you absolutely did. And then, you know, so when you left training, gosh, you started doing some really cool things and deals, and you and I had corresponded, and really, really impressed by it, which is why I wanted you on here and kind of talk about your life and how you're doing now. So let's go back prior though. So who was Kimmy Humphrey before CCTG? What did you do?
I grew up playing soccer my whole life. So I am the youngest of 3, but I have 2 older brothers, which I guess that's where I got my competitiveness from. So I was always like competing with them and wanted to take down the boys. So I played soccer my whole life, and then I got a right scholarship to ODU to play soccer. And then coming out of college, I kind of had to decide what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into pharmaceutical sales. I knew my competitiveness. I wanted to be in sales. Mm-hmm. But then when I went to go look at like pharmaceutical jobs, they wanted you to have, you know, prior experience, but I had never worked because I played soccer. So long story short is I went and worked for Enterprise and heard it was great on the resume, sales from the ground up, customer service, all of it. Then finally got into pharmaceutical sales. And then I ended up having a neat opportunity where when I was a rep in a specific territory. I kind of started it from $0, was able to grow it as a rep on the pharmacy side. And then the opportunity came to buy the pharmacy, which if you would have told me 5 years prior to that I would own a pharmacy, I would be like, no way. But that's kind of me. I'm a very big risk taker. I think that I do the best of when I'm uncomfortable, my back's up against the wall. So I can jump and I just won't look back.
That's awesome.
And that's what I did here. So I'm like, let's do it.
I
have no idea what I'm doing. And when I walked into that class and saw all those people, and I'm like this little girl like walking in there, I'm like, what did I just get myself
into?
Into?
All right, so let's back up for a second. See, now you're talking fast. I like it. You're talking really fast.
Yeah, see, there you go.
So you owned you were a pharmaceutical sales rep, and then you actually bought a pharmacy?
Yeah, because it was like a little mom and pop pharmacy. Okay. The business owner at the time he had a lot of other businesses going on, and he just didn't have the time to physically be in there himself. So it was either he was just going to close it, or he said, hey, listen, Kimmy, like you kind of grew this thing from $0.
So let me ask you something. If I always wondered this. So if you own a pharmacy, and let's say you come down with a sore throat, can you just like take an antibiotic off the shelf? You can't?
No.
Well, there's no. What's the perk of owning a pharmacy then? You know, at least save the doctor visit.
You're right. No, to me it was just business. You know, it didn't matter what it was. I just love business. Like I love learning. Which is honestly why I'm so drawn to CCTG and to you, because the way that your mind thinks is just fascinating to me.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Outside of the box, and you just have.
I think others would agree, but I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. So how was it dealing with doctors? I mean, I got a brother who's a doctor. Let me tell you, he's a pain in the ass. But like, you're a pharmaceutical sales rep. All you're doing is dealing with doctors. Did you like that, or were you like, I'm not going to do this too much longer?
It's no. I love forming relationships. I also I'm very good at understanding and being socially aware of different personalities and how you have to adapt to be around. Some that, you have to be serious with, others you can joke around with. Yeah. Switch those two up. Sometimes they just don't work with the opposite. So you just kind of have to be aware of that. But I've always gone, whatever business I've been in, like I've always just lived by take care of the customer and profits will follow, right? So listen to what the doctors need, what their patients need. Same thing with us now, like listen to what the client's needs are, and go from there. Don't think about your own agenda. Let's take care of the customer, and then they'll keep coming back to you. And
yeah, I love that. So, you went from being a pharmaceutical sales rep to saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to own the pharmacy. And then, and so then now you own this pharmacy and you're doing okay. What led you to search out? Like, how did you find us? Did you actually say, I want to own a finance company, or you just stumbled across us by accident?
I'd always wanted to get into commercial real estate. And then I just I was searching it, right? And the only thing that I knew would be available was the franchise side of it, right? So you're always going to have to pay royalties. At the end of the day, you're just another number to them, and then they will flood you with leads, but then it was almost, you have to go find your own lenders. And then you come across your program and it's the complete opposite. You need to go find your own leads, or we got to formulate your own leads, but then we put you in network with all of these different lenders. And that's the huge piece,
right?
Yeah. And to me, obviously we uncover Finance Marketing Group, how you guys, help so much with that. But in my mindset, I was like, I can go get my leads. That's fine. I want the piece where I can leave. It's a family, we have lifetime support with you guys.
Right.
That sort of thing. So,
yeah.
And I did due diligence. I called the prior grads and I was in.
Okay.
And then I walked into the classroom. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?
So tell me about those emotions. So it's Monday, you walk into the class and you had a partner. Is that correct? I remember
my brother.
Your brother. Okay. Yeah. You brought your
Yep.
brother, which is
Kris.
typical. Yeah. People bring family members and spouses. What's the first thing that went through your mind, like Monday morning when you're sitting there? Are you like, yeah, buyer's remorse?
I remember thinking that we were early to the class. And we weren't. We were the last ones to be seated. So we were across the table from each other rather than, sitting side by side. But it literally is like drinking from a fire hose. And I would laugh to myself, like, Kimmy, you got your hands full now. Like, you did this, and the more that the days went on, I remember in the first probably like hour and a half Monday morning, I was like, how am I ever going to wrap my head around this? And then it was neat because by the end of the course, I felt like I knew a lot, like a ton, that going from like the first part of Monday to, when we graduate, it's pretty cool. And then you go home with a lot of stuff. And again, it can be overwhelming, but to me, that's part of it. I love that piece of it.
So like when you were here in person, and I don't know, cause I don't really party with the grads after class, but like, were you like, was your class partiers? Did you party with them or did you kind of keep to yourself? It's
No,
different.
yeah. And it's funny that you say that. Some of the lenders, I won't name them by name, some of the lenders that you would bring in, that if they were staying the night over in the hotel, I'm like, come on, let's go. Like, let's meet downstairs, like me and my brother. And I would like ask them like 20, 30 questions. And they're like, all right, can I go to bed now? And I'm like, wait, just one more.
Yeah. I love it. No, you should. I mean, you get what you pay for, right?
Right. And then it was cool because we'd go downstairs. We would just be downstairs at the downstairs bar. And I'd have the lender, I'm just feeding him like drinks. So he like stays down there. But then some of the other guys would come sit down before he's like teaching a whole other class at night. But I'm like, I'm trying to ask him one-on-one time.
One-on-one questions. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was just kidding. Obviously, the classes was great. So
yeah.
Good group.
And so you went through training and then you get home and I'll back up by saying what I want to see more of and I love is that more females get in this industry. I mean, it's very, very male dominated. You go to a conference or any finance conference, it's always male dominated. And so I'm always pleased to see women take the training because I think the industry needs more of it. Absolutely needs more of it. And it's a rarity, but I mean, I hate to say it. I'd love to see more, but it's a rarity. So that's another reason why this is a special interview because, it's heavily male dominated. And so, which I'm sure doesn't faze you, right? I mean, to you, maybe that's a challenge. Maybe that's, I mean,
it's probably a draw for me. But again, I have two older brothers, so I love to compete with the guys.
Competition. Yeah. No, that's all. And I'm the youngest of two brothers too, so I get it. So you get home. What are you feeling that first week when you come home?
It was exactly like you said. You guys would always reference, okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit because it's going to come the Monday after class is done and then you guys graduate and you guys are going to sit there and be like, what do I do now? Right. And it is that exact feeling. And it's just a range of emotions. And I talked to a lot of the prospects, and I know some of the ones that I've talked to have taken the course, and I still talk to them. I think, which is one of the biggest things about CCTG that I love. So I will, in my own opinion, I will always be in debt to you guys because it is a big family. So when you're asking me how did I feel, I took your guys' advice, right? So you guys, when I was there, you would bring back Tim and some of the other graduates, and they lent a helping hand because I also know too that you guys gave them so much and they're willing to keep it going for you. Like, we owe you guys so much. So that's what I tell a lot of the prospects is I'm like, listen, I had past grads there for me. So it is a scary jump. It is a lot of money. It doesn't matter what package you do. It is a lot of money. Sure. But if you want to get your money back real quick, your return, you can get it back. That's up to you. Like, if you want to get it back, you'll get it back.
Right.
But some of the things, like, for me, I didn't know this industry at all. Right. So I'm in that class. I was probably the youngest one in the class that I was in. And on top of that, I just had no prior experience to the point where I'm like, God, these people are probably wondering, what is this like girl doing here? She has no idea what she's, never been in this. I didn't come from banking or finance, or I wasn't a broker. I wasn't a lender. I wasn't anything. I was just like, I'm here, like, teach me. So, part of that though is when you graduate, for me, there was a part of me that would feel intimidated, which I shouldn't have, But I felt like I couldn't reach out to maybe Mac because I'm like, gosh, they're going to think that I wasn't paying attention in class. So what I did was I listened to Tim. Tim said, oh, here's my number. Here's my business card. You guys feel free to call me. I blew him up all the time. Like we called.
You called Tim instead of Mac?
Well, until I felt like I burned Tim out, and then poor Mac. I remember one time it's like 10:30 at night on a Friday, and I'm like still like blowing Mac up, and he just wouldn't answer my question. He said, go to bed. I wrote him back one more question. He goes, never mind, I'm going to bed. And I started laughing. But
yeah. But listen,
me and Mac are good.
You know, yeah, but, I know. So yeah, so you started, and in fact, I think when I interviewed Tim, he was talking about you. Was that you he was talking about?
I watched it and I started laughing, and I sent him a text and I said, were you talking about me? Was I the young lady that you weren't going to name by name? He's so right. And I feel awful, but him and I were just actually laughing about it.
So for our viewers here that don't get what we're talking about, I did a podcast with Tim Maloney. You can check that interview out. And Tim started to tell me, he's like, I'm more than willing to help grads out. He goes, there was this one girl that called me all the time, bothered me, and I call her back now. I can't even get her on the phone. Like if I want to call her, I can't get her on the phone. She doesn't return my call. So that's what we're talking about here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I rewound it a couple times, and I was just laughing. So him and I just had a good laugh about it. But he's awesome. And you want to know what? Like he just as much as you have been there for me. I've had some deals where you stepped in and kind of gave me your advice, and I could kind of hear your feedback on it from a private lender standpoint. Mac has been there, but Tim and Bennett were significant in my success. And what I want, I always tell a lot of these prospects that call me is I'm like, listen, what Kris has been able to give to so many people is like invaluable. It is like a gift of what he is like giving to us. And not only that, but it's a family. You guys aren't left out on your own. When I talk to a lot of them, they're saying CCTG or this franchise. I'm like, listen, this franchise doesn't care about you, period. You're just a number to them. Like, this is a family. Like, we take care of one another. We're there for one another. And sometimes they'll ask me questions that I don't know the answers to, and I say, I don't know, but Kris will figure it out, which is true. But that's the lifetime support that comes with.
And we are a family. We not only internally here with our staff, but even with our graduates, we cry together. Sometimes we yell at each other, and we love each other. It's just, that's what a family is, right? You argue, you cry, you laugh. I mean, that's really what we are.
But I would say from my standpoint, is that piece after you leave class, like the support that you have with other grads and the relationships that you form with other grads, like for grads to come in and talk to the class and that they were once in your shoes, and it's going to be okay because they were once you and they've made it and they're going to be here for you, is huge.
Yeah. I mean, it is absolutely huge. And that's what I love about, when we have our association, we have our, our conference, everybody kind of comes back and you get to see, for me, it's a blessing because you could see people that were in previous classes and taught before and how they're doing. And, it's one big happy reunion, if you will. Okay. So you get out of class, and if I remember correctly, girl, you slammed it. Like you had like, all of a sudden you had like, $50 million deals and $10 million deals. And like you got knee deep in a lot of different deals. How did you go about doing that, being that you didn't have any experience in the business?
When I first graduated, I would say that I went for the low hanging fruit first, right? I was so uncomfortable when I left, like so uncomfortable. I can fake it till I make it, but I was so uncomfortable that in my head, my game plan is that I'm very good, or it's just me. Like I've always been one that's not afraid to ask for help, right? So my point being is that I knew part of our business was that we do fix and flip. Well, I had neighbors or I had friends or whoever were in that market. So when I'm up in Albany, I'm texting them saying, hey, listen, like, I just took this huge leap of faith. Like, I just spent all this money. Can you please help get me off my feet? So when I come back, can we talk? And I also knew too, is that if I had no idea what I was talking about, which I didn't, I could fumble around. I could fumble the process around with them. And I was talking to the lenders, because when you're introducing with a lender, there is like an uncomfortable piece there too, that I also knew that the lender said something or presented something or vice versa. It was just, I was with my neighbor or my buddy that I could kind of start there. Right.
Sure.
So much so that, and I tell this story a lot too, is that, I waited to do my kickoff of my campaign like a month and a half after. So, you know, I was in the November 2019 class, and then it was like Thanksgiving, and then you hit, you know, Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
So I didn't do my kickoff actually until the beginning of February, because I took some time to fumble around with my low-hanging fruit and getting to know my neighbors before my campaign kicked off. And then I was answering the phone to clients that, you know, I had no idea who they were, and I needed to make sure that I would know what I was talking about, essentially.
Okay.
And it was, what it was also cool about that is, I tell this story too, is I did the gold package. And so I have a lot of people that ask me, how did you choose between gold and platinum? And I said, listen, both are a good amount of money, right? So the difference is the marketing, the continued marketing. So it was very neat to me. So I had asked the question, listen, if I start off with gold, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, if the marketing piece is working, then can I pay the difference and move to platinum? And you guys said yes. So there was, when I was doing marketing on my own, or before my campaign kicked off, to when February 1st hit and the campaign kicked off, my was like blowing up, like blowing up.
Yeah.
That if you close the first couple of deals and then you know, reinvest in the company. But the point being is that I could see, you know, I again, you had December that was broken up with the holidays, but I had January, but then February when the campaign kicked off, I mean, I couldn't get the phone to stop ringing. The emails, like all of it. Yeah,
and that's good to know. So tell me about the first deal. What was your first deal that you closed?
It was an $11 million deal out in California. So
I love how you say it all nonchalant. It's like, well, it was this $11 million deal in California. Like, you know, normally it's.
But see, I don't know.
I paid,
I
$30,000 merchant cash advance, you know, but you're just like, you see that, Joe? She like shrugged her shoulders, like, it's just 11 million.
But see, I don't know any different.
Well, sorry. So go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but listen, that's a big deal. Like, no one comes out of class and does $11 million deals. That's maybe some people in our 10-year history or 11-year history, but so let's say, you know, that's a rarity for a first deal.
You know, and
I won't ruin your mojo. Keep going.
They asked me, so the lender asked me to do a testimonial for them.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so that's cool too.
Go for it.
But what is funny is, you know me, you know enough about my personality that I have a very hard time saying no. So this deal was unique in the fact, so I was going back and forth with the lender. I'm like, no, you can do this. Like, they're like, we can't. And this is why I'm like, no, here's why you can. And then the deal closed, right? So I'm like, right? Yeah. But I probably drove them nuts, right? They're just probably like, close the deal so she stops calling us.
Persistence.
Yeah, but I could, and again, it was one of those things where they kind of had to say, you know what, like, we might be able to structure it right. And I think that the borrower was just very well qualified. Another reason why they were doing it is that they also, too, saw the long-term relationship that would come out of it. It wasn't going to be just a one-time deal. Essentially, it was the purchase of 2 side-by-side lots or properties, so 2 single-family homes, and purchase price on each house out there was, and so we started with the purchase of one for $2 million, and then purchased the second lot right next door to it, like 15 days later, for another 2 million. And then what happens is they had plans to they would get the permit secured. They'd have plans to knock both of those down. And then they were going to refi, add in the construction loan that was totaling up to 11 million. And they're building 3 luxury condos on both lots.
So what'd you make on $11 million deal?
It was good. It was a 67,000, and we had to back down on our points.
Hold on a second. You see that again, Joe? First deal, she made 67,000, and she's just like it's no big deal.
Yeah,
like,
no big deal. No big deal.
I love that. Yeah, so, 67,000. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I know you guys are making me. But it was cool, and I kind of Mac and I laugh about it too, because I forget why in the very beginning now, but Mac was like, I don't think it's going to work, and this is why, because I was getting mad at the lender. I was calling Mac. I was like, why is he telling me this? And he's like, because he's right, Kimmy. And I'm like, no. So Mac like laughs with me. He's like, you go, girl. Like, what is day after all?
Yeah.
So, and I think too, that's maybe why I've been successful is because there'll be clients that come across that will have the application, everything, the package like sent in over to the lender, and the lender will come back and say, hey, Kimmy, this isn't going to work because they don't qualify, And so at that point, I think a lot of people naturally would say,
so give up.
Okay, thanks. Like, I'll let them know. But I always say to the lender, okay, well, what do we need to do to make this deal work? Like, what has to happen?
Right. Well,
what
I think a lot of brokers don't realize is that they're not talking to the borrower initially. You're the advocate of the borrower. And if you don't highlight and fight for the borrower and tell that story, that sometimes a lender will miss things on, they don't see the whole picture with just an application and supporting documents. There's stories to things and why things are the way they are and why credit scores are the way they are. And so it's really up to the broker. You bring up a great point or a great skill in that you have to be that advocate. You have to know your deal. And if you feel strong about something, that the lender may have missed, you got to communicate that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is to your point. I think that's why you're very, very successful. And then so after you close that deal, what did it feel like?
Cool. I'm like, gosh, let's do another one.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, that's the correct word, Joe. And so is that what you concentrate on? I mean, is that your thing, like real estate? Is that kind of where you gravitated towards, or are you in some other segments?
I guess I don't even know really how. People ask me that all the time. They said, how did you find your niche? I'm like, I to be honest with you, I don't know. It kind of it happened probably in part because the low-hanging fruit, the neighbors, the friends were in the fix and flip business. So I started understanding that, which then opens up to like multifamily and commercial and that sort of thing. And then a lot of to my business comes, and this is the neat thing too, is that I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Outside of our PPP loans, all my clients are elsewhere. They're not in Virginia Beach. Like a lot of they're in Texas, they're in Florida, they're in California. So a lot of my deals too come from word of mouth. I think that the borrowers, the clients, especially, they're not just typically in it for one deal either. Like, this is their business. This is their livelihood, right? So they do one deal with you and they like you or you work hard for them, then they're going to keep coming back to you. And on top of that, they too also want to help you out. So the borrower that I closed that deal with keeps sending me business, and I could make a very, very, very nice living just working with him, and he's referred business to me, so much so that when we were doing the PPP loans, he said to me, hey, Kimmy, shoot me over a little marketing piece, right? What you need, and I'm going to shoot it out to like my colleagues over here. I'm going to help you out. Like, I know that you're new too. We started to know each other. So he knew eventually that I was just brand new, to this industry, right? And then it came back that he wanted to help me too. So I think, again, like back to how I always like run my business is take care of the customers, like listen to what they want, don't have your own agenda, and then profits will follow. Like, I think that all my clients know that I'm there for them. I'm going to try everything that I can do for them. I'm going to fight for them. And I genuinely want to take care of them, and they'll come back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, the other thing that amazed me about a lot of our graduates, including yourself, is, COVID hit, right?
Mhm.
COVID hit. And again, our viewers are probably tired of me saying this if they're watching on the podcast, but for the first time in our history with our graduates, there was an event that happened that kind of stunned the industry for a second, right? Because we only, became in existence in 2009. And so we were already kind of over the crash, just coming out of the crash. But, throughout that time, there's historic growth and the economy gets better and better and better. And then boom, COVID hits. So what amazed me about you and a lot of other graduates is how you transitioned focused on PPP, right? And listen, it wasn't an easy process. There was a lot of fumbles. There was a lot of on everybody's part, even lenders scrambling and the government, and things change day by day and rules and guidelines. But in the end of the day, you helped a lot of PPP borrowers. And so tell me about that transition. Were you like, did you just dig right in the sand and say, okay, we got to go where the opportunity is and like cease everything else we're doing and just focus on this?
It's neat. I think too, in part that I'm still new, right? So I
Yeah.
just don't know any different, right? So for me, it was on top of the chaos of everything else. There's a huge piece that went into it, and it was the internal panic that all of these business owners were having. So on top of all this chaos, the biggest piece to it, which did not help add to all the stress and all the fumbling, that was to nobody's fault, right? It was just, there were so many different scenarios and the government had to start somewhere, but there was just, every situation is different. Every deal is different, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
they had to try to throw out these guidelines to just start somewhere. And it was chaos. And then you're dealing with not only is that chaos, but this panic, because it's live or die for some of these people.
Absolutely.
For us, as you know, is that why we talk about these big deals and you can make a big commission check on it. Like, it is really, to me, like a testament of a lot of people's character almost, because a lot of that PPP loans, they didn't come with a huge commission check, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no.
you were doing it almost not out of the kindness of your heart, but out of the kindness of your heart. You're wanting to genuinely help these people, right?
Right.
That when there were events that unfolded that if I couldn't take care of them, right? I wanted them to now, especially because they're right here in my backyard. I want them to listen. Like, I want everybody to get taken care of, whether it's going to be with me or whether it's going to be somewhere else. Like, I want you to get your package together. I'm going to do my best to help it work. But if you can pivot and go quicker with your bank, or they're saying that they can take you, then go do it. Or I was always just trying to find avenues again, and that is wanting to genuinely take care of people. And out of that, I got refinance deals. I got clients, and again, we're now working with all business owners that I would have never worked with prior to that, know? So while I did those first deals, and again, I love the fact that I could help people and save their businesses, because I have such a passion for business. And even though like I was at the office until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, like for most nights, and then the return on those were very small, I was okay with it because I could see the big picture. So, you talk about the crash, and kind of like our industry had never seen anything like this. And I always remember you saying that the business is recession proof, and it's kind of a safe industry to get into, because if a recession hits, like, people need money infused into their business, or they need capital to keep their business alive. Well, here is a huge pandemic that the world has never seen.
Right.
But I'm at the office, like, working until 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, we had it coming in, and it's led to future business. So again, it's kind of a cool difference.
I was just going to ask that. I mean, a lot of the people that you helped, now that the PPP money has essentially run out and they use the money the way it was supposed to be used, now they need more money. I mean, to either survive or in some cases grow, now that the economy is kind of slowly opening up. That's a great story. It's a really great story. Yeah, I know how you feel. I mean, we had people literally sleeping in the office around the clock.
Yeah, you guys were awesome. I know. I thought at times you guys were going to just like, Mac is like, stop calling them. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, it was like boiler room. Like, we had like computers lined up, and it was all hands on deck, and everybody.
But at the end of the day, we got through it.
Yeah, no, we did. Like I said, with the help of some Chinese food and pizza, everybody gained weight, because we're just like, it's like a war room,
And
Um,
it's kind of fun. See, I love scenarios like that. I love like when the
me too.
pressure is like really on you. It's just the chaos of it and just trying to work together and figure it out. And honestly, like without you guys, without CCTG, a lot of brokers couldn't do the loans. Period.
Oh yeah, we had to do a lot in order to make that happen, and which is too long to get into on this. But yes, I appreciate that. And you know,
I appreciate that.
I'm like you. I thrive in chaotic situations, like
Mhm.
because what it does is for me, I did it 3 times in my career. When 9/11 happened, and if you remember, when after 9/11, the year after, the economy like shut down. And when '08 happened, and now COVID, and I actually love that environment because it forces you to literally block out everything else, right? And it sucked because there were times where, I was home and I had my kids with me, and I had to tell my kids like, "Hey, Daddy can't do that because I'm literally up to 4 in the morning, working things out, communicating with my staff, and getting up and going to work the next day." And so like everybody had to suffer, I say, and sacrifice in order to let me do my thing, to get through this, because you're just in the zone and you're focused and you're in like crisis mode. But it's good. I like that feeling. So it's interesting to hear that.
It's survival mode.
Yeah,
And
it's a good feeling.
I love feeling. You
Yeah,
better figure it out or it's not going to be good. We got to figure
be
it
good.
out.
Right,
Mhm.
right. That's awesome.
I love that atmosphere. Just something just being so easy and so smooth and handed to you on a silver platter.
How do the rest of your family take that? I mean, obviously you're hustling, you're working, you're staying up late. Like, was the rest of your family understanding?
Um, yeah, I'm like telling my husband, yeah, I have a 1.5-year-old, so
Yeah.
I'm like at the office, they're 11. Are you sure? I'm like, yeah, like I'm at the office, but it's again
Gotta
too
play
is
mom.
I
He's
just
got to play mom for a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
and everybody had to pitch in, but too a lot of our friends, a lot of my husband's friends are business owners in this area, and
Mm,
he just knew. I mean, his phone was blowing up. Like,
yeah.
can Kimmy help us? Like, can you guys please? And with those, it's just business owners know business owners, that you can help. I'm going to refer this person to you. I'm going to refer this person to you. And not only was I getting PPP loans here, but you have families that have family members in New York or California or wherever that also own businesses. Can you help them too? Like, absolutely. And that, especially with PPP, I think one of the things that you have to do is understand and learn how to manage your time, because time is money, right? So there's a lot of people out there right now looking for money that you just, unfortunately, they're just not, you can't
Can't,
help them, right?
can't help
When
everybody.
it comes, when it came to the PPP loans, I literally couldn't say no to anybody because I just knew the sheer panic that they had inside of them. And for me to have such like an appreciation for business and business owners and to see someone like that, that's why I was staying awake until, so late and working so late, because I just was trying to take in so many PPP loans to help people out and just find homes for all of them so they could get funded.
Yeah.
And again, it's calming them down, which is calming to me. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember getting some text from you, and
Yeah.
like it'd go like bing, 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 bing. I'm like, did a relative die? Like, what happened? Okay, and it's Kimmy. These long texts like, "Hey, what should I do?" Or, "Can we help this person?"
I know, I
Which is all
know.
good. It's good, but I mean, I love it. It's hustle. It's hustle. It's absolutely.
Yeah, and I just, apart from anything else, I think people will remember that. Like they'll remember those times that they just thought that they were going to lose everything,
Right.
their business. Then what happens if they lose their business? That's their like income. That's their families that they take care of.
They
And
thought the world was gonna end at one point. I mean,
huh?
people thought the world was going to end.
Yeah, and to know that you could be there and help people when they couldn't get through to anybody else, or they also understood. Every time I picked up the phone, then they're like, Kimmy, thank you for answering our phone calls. Like, we know that you're so busy, but can you please answer? And more often than not, I didn't even realize that I was picking up phone calls at 10:30 at night. I didn't even realize they were 10:30 at night. They're like, sorry, we're calling you so late. I can't believe you answered the phone. And I'm like, I didn't even realize it was 10:30, but I'm here, like. But again, that driver to get through that chaos was knowing that I was helping people and I could calm people down and help was on the way. Essentially, that's
right. Wow.
You know,
Yeah. What a
and
story.
it'll come back. It'll come back.
Yeah.
And it already has, you know, like
Well,
not all the.
that's what I was going to ask you. So what's life like now? I mean, tell me about your pipeline. Tell me about some exciting things. Like what's going on?
I think that, I too, had deals, a lot of deals on the table that were set for closing,
Sure.
you know, with anywhere from like a couple of days to the next 30 days, you know, big, it almost seemed like overnight, my phone was blowing up with those clients. They're like, we just got emails from these lenders saying that they're turning it off. Like, even though they had closing dates, they had to put a pause.
Right.
So I think my reaction was, oh my gosh, like I'm going to lose these deals. And then what I just quickly realized is that it wasn't just lenders, but it closed down. You know, it was just the uncertainty. Nobody's lending. Like, everyone's putting a pause on it because nobody knew what's going on. You know, you couldn't figure out. So it wasn't necessarily that. Then I started realizing I'm not going to lose those deals. Now you need to, again, pivot, because you need to stay in contact with these clients, right? And and a lot of it too was I could kind of defer back to my clients, where I'm like, listen, if you still want to do, in certain cases, right, if you still want to do this deal, we can do it. Just understand that this pandemic has come up, right? So the terms maybe aren't going to be as favorable, or they're not going to be as favorable. So I'm going to defer back to you. Do you want to put the brakes on it for a second, to wait for this to kind of pass and then the guidelines to go back to where they were? Or would you rather go ahead and take the unfavorable terms that they're offering right now? And I'll leave it up to you. And then it kind of just put it on them. And they're like, you know what? You know, some of them wanted to take the unfavorable terms and some of them wanted to wait. And so the ones that waited, some of them I was able to go ahead and get closed out post-pandemic. Others were still waiting and working and just coming back through it. So
yeah. And so are things picking up now?
Yeah, I feel like I'm more busy now than I was before the pandemic, which is cool.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really
So,
awesome.
Tim, I'm sorry.
I'm sure Tim will understand.
I feel bad. I know.
I'm sure Tim will understand. I'll make sure he watches this. So
he's good.
So now comes the uncomfortable time. You ready? I know you said you were nervous prior to getting on here. So now I'm going to hit you with some kind of off the cuff questions. You ready? You sure? Okay. All right.
Do I have a choice?
No, not really. You don't have a choice.
Then I get to interview you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Put me on the hot seat. Put me on the hot seat. All right. So what's one thing that we normally wouldn't know about Kimmy?
That I used to wrestle, like competitive wrestling.
Really?
Yeah, like I won regionals.
Like you used to wrestle other women or guys?
Boys.
Oh, boys.
This is when the 56-pound division. Yeah, this is when I was little. Real little.
Really?
I was in
wow.
4th, 5th, 6th grade.
Were you kicking ass? Yeah.
Absolutely. See, I was in gymnastics.
Okay.
So I would be in my backyard on my trampoline, minding my own business, and my brothers and their friends would come home, and they all wrestled. So they'd come out there and throw me off the trampoline or try to put me in some wrestling moves, and I would go running inside to my mom and say that they're beating me up. And honestly, it's probably my mom that got more fed up with it.
Yeah, she was just like, let's go kick their ass.
Yeah, she's like, that's like, I'm over you complaining, like, you're going to wrestling club practice with them tonight. And I'm like, what? So of course I then again walk in there, I'm the only girl, and all these like boys, and of course they're probably like, you're at that age, you're in elementary school, they're all like whispering about me. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But see, what they didn't realize is I had done gymnastics years prior to this, right? So I had like muscle mass like built up, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
Got him in the cradle. Like my go-to move was the cradle.
I was just gonna ask that. What's your go-to move?
Cradle, yeah. I pin him every time, and then they would cry. I'm like, yeah, you want to whisper about me now?
Oh man, do you still break out your wrestling moves once in a while, like on your husband or like anybody?
Every once in a while, yeah. But then, you know, I start to think that I'm still that had that advantage over them. I really realized very quickly that I can get taken down fast.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Certainly wouldn't know that about you just by looking at you. If you could sit down with anybody, you have like an hour, 2 hours with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
Zig Ziglar or Mark Cuban.
Zig Ziglar. Okay. Yeah, we've had one other person say Mark Cuban. I believe so, but not Zig Ziglar. Okay, so you've subscribed to kind of his philosophy, and you know.
Yeah, just read his books. It's just neat his approach to sales, to life. I always like concepts where not only do they provide lessons in business, but they also provide life lessons too, just like trains of thought. Or sales is hard, you know, it's not for everybody. Not everybody can do it. I think there are pieces of it that make you successful that you can't teach. Like somebody just has to have that it factor, that go-getter, like it's going to happen, right? So that's stuff that you can't teach, but coupled with kind of how you get people to switch gears when they think that they need this and have that, but you kind of pivot them.
Guide them.
You know, same thing with, we're talking about terms and rate.
Right.
Stuff. Like you have to show it to in a different light to get them to kind of understand it. Or when they think there's a big difference in one point, you literally break down the numbers and you know what their profit margin is going to be off of it. And you're like, are we really like arguing about this? Like, get the deal done, you know? Right. And they're like, you're right. I didn't look at it that way. I was just
kind of mold and influence people to, you know, get them to do not in a malicious way, but get them to understand kind of what the value proposition is. Get it? If you weren't running this business and you weren't, you didn't have a pharmacy and you didn't know who CCTG was, what would you be doing right now, you think?
I would be a detective.
Really? Do you watch a lot of detective shows?
Yeah, like I love Dateline and crime TV, and not that I love murders. It is just fascinating to, again, when I say that I just love watching how people like think, it's just fascinating to me. It's a puzzle, which again is why I love lending, right? You're never going to have a boring day in lending because every single deal is different.
Everybody's different, right?
Every single deal is different, and you have to sit there and put this puzzle together, which again, I like it. If it was too easy, I wouldn't, you know. But
could you deal with like the crime scenes and stuff like that?
That's the piece that I don't like blood and I don't like guts, but it is very intriguing to me to watch a detective come on the scene and literally someone, you know,
piece the puzzle together.
Right. And then how they walk down this like path. It's just fascinating.
You know, I don't watch a ton of TV, but you know, one show that always struck out on my mind was cool if it's on once in a while, if I'm you know, watching TV is that show 48 Hours, right? Where they dispatch and they showcase like in 48 hours, you know, if they can catch who the killer was.
They say they have to, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. They say that if you haven't had a huge break in a case within the first 48 hours, the chance of solving it goes down by 50%.
Yeah. So that show is pretty wild on how those guys, you know, hone in on somebody. All right. Well, now comes, I guess, your favorite time. Ask me a couple of questions. Doesn't matter what they are. No question is, everything's fair game.
This is kind of a kudos to you. Does finance run in your family? Like, do you come from a long line? Like how doctors come from a long line of doctors, right?
Hell no. No.
The reason why I asked that.
Yes.
Is because myself being in the business for a very short time, my brother Kris and I laugh about this all the time. The way that you think, like how CCTG even came about, like your ability to identify rooms of improvement that honestly, it's like, why hasn't someone come up with this before? You get what I'm saying? Like, and they're game changers, and you keep doing it. The finance marketing company. Now we have the podcast.
Yeah.
You know,
I told everybody I'm selling everything and just doing this podcast. I love it. Become a podcaster, and I'll just keep Joe. That's it.
Yeah.
Joe and I will go on the road. You know, well, I appreciate those comments. Does it run in my family? No, absolutely not. I'll tell you what I think. I mean, if I do some self-reflection, I can tell you where the desire comes from. You know, if you remember my story, and I won't go through it because we don't really have time, but you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? I had no idea what I wanted to do. All I did know though is, at a very early age, see, I grew up, someone in a very poor environment, poor family. You know, there was love there, but I mean, in terms of money and things like that. And at one point in my childhood, very, very early childhood, I actually lived in a shelter for about 9 to 10 months. And that was, you know, people say, you know, there's some things in your childhood that like really still drive you today. And I'll tell you one thing is, I never forget it. You know, so we had to live in a shelter, and you know, you're in there with, you know, you're in there with people that are in very unfortunate situations. And I never forget it. And it was, you know, dirty and, you know, not the best ambiance and environment. I never forget it. I went to school. I was probably in third grade, and remember I was sitting at my desk and I felt something in my shoe. And so literally right there doing class, like I took off my shoe and there was 2 roaches in my shoe, in my sneaker. And some of the class saw that, and they saw the roaches, and it was like it was, you know, kind of a, you know, traumatic experience. Some people teased, things like that. And to this day, I never forget that. And to this day, I say to myself, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It forces me never to be complacent, because I never want to go back to that. That makes sense. It doesn't matter if I have $1 billion. I still never want to go back to that. So that forces, I think internally, for me at least, that enforces me to always keep going and going and going and doing new things, even though we really don't have to. But it's kind of an inner drive. And so I think that's what, when I look back, that's what I attribute at least the motivation to start, you know, to do things. I happen to love the industry that I'm in. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But no, there is no lineage of finance. The only level of entrepreneurship that comes in my family was my grandfather, who I didn't have a pleasure of meeting. But when he came to this country from Italy, he actually started a leather jacket company. And believe it or not, he won the contract to supply all the leather jackets to pilots in World War II. So every pilot that you saw on a plane that had that bomber leather jacket on was made by my grandfather. Yeah. And so
Really?
the old story is this. The old story is, and actually you could find them on eBay, believe it or not. Sometimes you see them on eBay, and sadly I don't have one, but it'd be cool to get one. Like an original one. They make copies now, kind of retro to that era. But he made it. The story is like he made it, and this contract lasted throughout World War II. So when he got the contract, you know, he made $1 million. But then after the contract ended, business ended for the most part, right? And he had a partner he took on later that kind of, you know, they had a partner dispute. I don't really know. It's been so long, you know, I don't know the details. But I can tell you that my father always said he made $1 million, and then he died broke, but not owing anything. Does that make sense? So he didn't die. He didn't have all this money when he died, but he didn't owe anybody. He owned his own house. He saved, you know, and so that's kind of his story. And I wish I could have met my grandfather, but yeah, that's the only lineage of entrepreneurship. But in terms of finance, no.
So do I have time for one more question?
Yeah, you got time for many questions. What do you want to ask? Go ahead.
So all of the companies that you own right now, obviously, and now doing the podcast too, are all in finance related, right?
Yep.
Would you ever, have you thought about it? Are there plans? Would you ever I just feel like you have a natural sixth sense for business. So would you ever do a different type of business completely outside of finance? And what would it be?
That's an interesting question. Joe knows
Got you.
Joe knows me. Yeah. That's a very interesting question. I've had numerous opportunities to get into other types of ventures. And, you know, and I've actually been partners in ventures here and there with things that are unrelated to finance, but I got in it and, you make a little money and then you get out. But that's a very good question. I don't know. I tend to believe in, I like to be in an industry that I like. For instance, I look at things that I like. I like to go out to eat. I would never own a restaurant though. It's just, you're married to it. I mean, you're married to all businesses, but like I could never, it would ruin going to restaurants for me. Right. I like cars. I love cars. Right. I'm a gearhead. I would never want to get into a business where you sold cars or you deal with cars, just because like it would ruin that passion for me. Man, I think you stumped me. I don't know what business, if I would consider some type of other opportunity. I'm always open to opportunities for sure. But I turn a lot down. And I think it's also because I tend to want to give it 100%. And if I can't give something 100%, there's no sense getting involved in it, because otherwise, like I say, if you're going to get into something and only put in 10%, you're only going to get 10% out of it. Right. So otherwise, what's the, why get into it?
So I wonder now if kind of how CCTG came about, how you were able to identify a huge issue, challenge. You were able to identify an area where we could make the whole industry better, right? There was brokers out there that didn't know what they were doing. They were wasting everybody's time. Do you ever look at another industry and are able to identify just like that, man, why hasn't this been taking place?
Why hasn't this been?
Maybe it'll get you into a.
Yeah, no, there's been times where, well, I mean, so honestly, I'll go back to another series on a podcast that I talked about. If you were to ask me, is there somebody that I look up to, mentor? You said Zig Ziglar. For me, it's Andrew Carnegie. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a freak about Andrew Carnegie. And, his philosophy is fascinating. In fact, a lot of the guys that you see today that are so-called gurus and, these people that are teaching, hyped up, be an entrepreneur, do this, do that, motivational type speakers, they all stole that shit from Andrew Carnegie. A lot of it, in that, his philosophy is, look, you get into an industry and you try to dominate it from all corners of that industry. Right. And then you work hard, you become successful, and then, you reach a point in your life where you give back. And, and Andrew Carnegie, when he died, he was self-made. He didn't mm-hmm. come from any trust fund or money. He gave everything back. That's why you see all these libraries and you see his name, Carnegie Hall, and all these things. He made an enormous amount of wealth. And then when he died, he gave it all back to kind of preserve his legacy. And I love that, just that life philosophy. And so, not that I'm Andrew Carnegie by no stretch of imagination. But so if you take kind of what's guiding me, I try to do that for our industry, in that, look, it's the industry of finance. So I wanted to create a marketing company. I saw a need for a marketing company because I used to outsource marketing all the time. And you go to a marketing company, you're like, hey, we're going to do SEO for, accounts receivable lines of credit. And they're like, what in God's hell is accounts receivable lines of credit, right? And then you got to actually pay that marketing company to understand your business model. So I said to myself, and plus I realized that a lot of people, my colleagues that own finance companies, they don't have a clue about digital marketing. So I said, yeah, I saw an opportunity. Well, let me start a marketing company in the finance sector. I already had a lending company. And then obviously I saw a massive improvement in the training. We're not the first training company to ever exist, but I saw that it needed to be improved tremendously. And so I started a training company to get people in the industry, and now we have the association, the NACLB, and that was needed in the industry. So, not that I'm trying to monopolize the industry, but it's take an industry, you know it well, and then try to open up business models in different corners of that industry. And, you know, that's kind of the equation that that I stick to, try to stick
You want
to.
to know what's so funny is, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, or I may have said it to Joe, but it's funny that you say that about giving back, because when I talk to the prospects or colleagues or whoever, I always say we are lucky. We are blessed because what Kris is given to us is, we're lucky. So
Yeah.
you giving back, and it's true, because I recognize it, and honestly, it's like one of the first things that comes out of my mouth when I talk about you is what you've been able to give back to all of us, or given to all of us.
Well, and, you know, and it's not, yeah, I mean, I guess what keeps me going, and again, I've said this on other podcasts before, is, you know, when I hear that somebody won a certain award for our, let's say, our association or conference, like Broker of the Year or Rookie of the Year, and they get up there and they talk about, gee, I helped, you know, 300 businesses, or I helped this person, or, you know, we have the most creative deal award too, that we're, you know, how did you take it, almost an impossible situation, turn it around? That's what really makes me feel good. Absolutely makes me feel good, because, I mean, for instance, case in point, you crushed it on PPP. I mean, you killed it. You did a lot of PPP loans. Now, if you were just still owning a pharmacy and you never found us and you didn't come through here, perhaps some of those people would have never got their PPP loan, right? So that's what really makes me feel good. You hear successful stories about, you know, other people doing good things for other people. Kind of comes back around full circle.
Yeah.
So, is that it? Boy, you let me off easy. I thought I was on the hot seat.
I know, right? I mean, they were good questions. Now you have my mind going. I mean, I could sit here and ask you like 100 questions. Ask Mac. I'm good. I'll take your whole day.
No, this is good. This is good. This is
yes.
good. I got one for you. Here's one that we always ask. What's one thing that sucks about this business? It's got to be something that sucks. Texting Mac at midnight and not getting a reply?
No, those make me laugh. It sucks for I'm good with them. What is one thing that sucks about this? You know what? Honestly, it is probably that we're doing a good job fighting it, I think. Sometimes you get asked the question with a negative connotation behind it. Are you a broker?
Yeah. How do you respond to that, if you remember what I taught you? Let's see if you remember.
Right. With what I say. And I don't typically, not we have our group of lenders, and we have lenders that have competing products, and you just know the differences between them. So there's a level of this, but I just take, again, it goes back to Zig Ziglar and how you kind of like reshape them. Is it not that I'm calling them out saying, are you saying that that's a negative thing? What goes through their mind is that we're just more expensive, right? You introduce a broker and there's no point, but you're going to have to pay extra money. To me, I say, yes, you would rather have us, because we don't want to, what you don't want is someone to be trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? If you're not talking to a broker, what you have on the table has to fit into their program, because they don't have a plethora of different programs, right? So they're going to basically try to sell you to make it fit straight into that hole. And if it doesn't, like, you want me to be able to actively listen to what's going on, like what your challenges are, like why you've been turned down in the past, and let me go to work for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I understand that can be frustrating, you know, that can be frustrating. A lot of brokers have said, a lot of graduates have said, you know, when you bust your ass for somebody, you get a term sheet, you got the lender ready to go, and then they just like kind of take that term sheet and, you know, try to get, you know, go somewhere else, or, you know, they kind of leverage your time, and it happens, you know, and it does suck when that happens. That's what I hate, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some things on the horizon? Anything on the horizon for Kimmy Humphrey?
In terms of deals, or in terms of what?
In terms of everything. Yeah. Like what's on the horizon? Are you, you gonna enter in a wrestling tournament? I mean, you're going to grow? You're going to add some people to your team? Like, you know, I don't know.
I'm quarantining all my on. I don't know why, but I have everyone's into different social media platforms like TikTok, but somehow I don't even know. This is so weird. But on TikTok, there's like, I don't know how it came across, but there's like gardening hacks. Like, so I'm like growing my own like vegetables now. Everyone's like, when did Kimmy become a farmer? And I'm like, I don't know how, but on TikTok, I somehow gardening hacks. So, growing like green onion from scratch and like red peppers and green peppers. I just planted some pumpkins. So I'm just having
I find that fascinating.
watching something grow.
Well, no. Not as fascinating as that you have a TikTok account.
Everyone's like, you have a TikTok account? I'm like, yeah, but not because of the way that you guys have TikTok. I'm like growing vegetables off my TikTok. And they're like, you have like lost it.
Sure.
But it's funny because I like start talking about it. Now all my other friends like.
Well, now maybe you could do like dance videos of growing like in front of your garden, doing stuff like that, because that's.
I'm white girl. I have no rhythm, none.
Yeah, because like my daughter has TikTok and she's 10, and like, man, it's always like people like dancing and lip syncing, and so that's what I know of TikTok. That's all I know.
Yeah, and I don't understand that part of TikTok. I'm just like, cool, look at these vegetables. Like I could do this. My whole kitchen windowsill has like all these like basil and cilantro. My husband's like, what is like going on? But it smells great in there.
I bet you it does. Wow. That's awesome.
You should try it. Next time you get green onion, just take it down to instead of like throwing away the white piece that has the roots on it, stick it in a cup with a little bit of water just to cover the roots, right?
Okay.
And stick it in the windowsill, and before you know it, you will have green onion. Like within like 2 days, I had green onion that was like this big. Just water and in the windowsill.
You just saved me from getting a TikTok account.
Yeah.
I'll take your advice then. I don't have to go to TikTok.
Amazing.
All right. Well, listen, Kimmy, I want to thank you for your time. This was awesome. It was good catching up with you. It's again, you haven't been doing this that long, but you've been killing it. You've been crushing it. And it's always great to see people flourish. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this.
And I can say sincerely thank you to you. I mean, I am just loving it. I tell people this too. I did well for myself before, but this is just life-changing. And I love it. It's just fun. It's challenging. I want to help the other grads that are coming through. I want people to have success. I want people to be happy, like it's fun. Like we're a big family.
Cool. And
we all get to see each other at the conference. Like it's fun.
I know. And I know that you guys, and I know that you've done a testimonial for us before. So I know some people probably seek you out and pick your brain. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I tell you, I mean, I couldn't say enough good things about it. I'm like, listen, tell them to call me. Like I'll sell them on the course. Like it's a no brainer. I always tell this one guy called me. He's like, I've been talking to them for 2 years. I'm like, okay, so you just missed out on 2 years of income. Like you just got to jump. I don't know what to tell you, but go.
Yeah.
Call me when you graduate and I'll help you. I got you. Just jump, go. Like
we've had people that, it's funny. We have people that look at us for 8 years. I mean, and then they commit. I mean, and then we had a guy like 2 months ago that literally, the hell was it, Joe? He found us on Sunday night. We had class Monday morning. We have virtual class now, right? It's all virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And he like literally, he attended class the next day. He paid like at 7 a.m. Like there was only like 10 hours from the time he saw us to when he learned it was virtual. So that was a first. Great guy though, out of Brooklyn. All right.
The other cool thing too is the diversity.
Diversity. Yeah. We got all walks of life.
Yeah, but and just in so many ways in the class, but the diversity too. Think about your podcast and think about the really successful CCTG grads. We have kind of all in our own way developed our own way of like doing it, and it's working for us. Like we're not all like going down this path and doing it like following the same protocol. We're all, you have some that are just out there calling on bankers, flying to other cities and just calling on bankers in other cities, and that's how they're doing their business. You have fix and flip, you have equipment. Yeah. It's just we all like just take it.
You guys are all doing your own thing, and that's what I love about it. You're all kind of doing a unique thing. You're following. You have the tools and recipe, but it's almost like this. Like we give you the ingredients to make the chicken soup, and we teach you how to make it, but everybody's going to put their own touch on it, right? It's spicy. It's not going to have this. It's going to have this. It's going to be a little saltier. I mean, that's how I equate it to what you guys are
The
doing.
other cool thing, the other down to earth, just cool thing that I love too, and you probably don't even pick up on this until I mention it, but it's funny too how open that you are to diversity, or open. You don't want everybody to be cookie cutter. So you have just much appreciation for the guys who come through class and they're partying it up and coming in hungover, and as the ones that are sitting there taking notes and going to bed early.
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, there's been some guys that have come in at, noontime, and we start at 8 a.m. if you remember, and it's just like, what are you doing?
They come to class at noon?
Yeah, we've had classes before where they party so much that they come in hungover by like noontime, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like, you paid a lot of money, like, and those are the ones that usually always come back, or they, then they call up John with 80 questions, because they missed a lot of content. So, but
well, I call Mac with 90 questions too, but I was listening.
With 90 questions.
But I was listening.
Yeah, no, Mac loves you. Every time he talks to you, he comes in, and when he's here in our office, he says, I spoke to Kimmy and things. So we all love you here. Well, with that being said, Kimmy, we've run out of time, sadly to say, but I do appreciate you coming on this podcast and sharing your insight and having
the new office. I want to come see it soon.
Yeah, anytime. You're more than welcome to come see it. It is awesome. We got a lot of fun stuff here. We got Pac-Man machines. We got a popcorn machine. We got a pool table. We got a gym. We got it all here.
Yeah. So you're in a different building. That's just not a renovation.
No. We moved actually a block down the street because our we had a long-term lease at the other building, and then when it came up, we needed a bigger space because we're growing, and we're literally a block down the street, but much nicer. Much nicer.
It looked awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to come see it.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, everybody, that's it for this episode of Entrepreneurs in Finance. Look forward to more podcasts and episodes coming out. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.
There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. People always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business.